In this lesson, we're going to talk about creating a stock model as well as a new toolpath group to start machining the other side of our part. Make sure that you carry on with the file from our previous example and that your insertion point is inside the Setup-2 Fixture toolpath group. We're going to go to our Toolpath tab and select Stock Model. We're going to name this Setup-2 Fixture. The stock plane is going to be the Fixture Setup 2 plane. And we're going to use the stock setup as the original size of our stock. For our source operations, we want to select the Setup-2 Fixture toolpath group and say OK. What this does is it creates a solid version of what we've already machined to this point based on our toolpaths. If we go to our Levels tab, we can turn off our Fixture Setup 2, and that way we can see just the stock model. For right now, we're going to turn the Fixture Setup 2 level back on, and we want to hide our stock model. The next thing that we want to do is we want to create a new toolpath group so we can flip the fixture over and start drilling it from the opposite side. The first step is to select Setup-2 Fixture 2 from our view sheet. This ensures that we're using the correct plane and that our construction and tool planes are in the right orientation. Next, from our Toolpath Manager, we're going to right-click on the Haas VF2 machine group, select Groups, and create a new toolpath group. We're going to call this Setup-2 Fixture-2. If you make an error when typing in the name, you'll want to right-click, select Groups, and rename. Once we have our second toolpath group set up and our insertion point is below, we can start creating our new operations. We want to start by making sure again that we're on Setup-2 Fixture 2 view sheet to ensure that the orientation is correct as well as the part. Notice that we don't have the vise located in this orientation. If you wish to have the vise in yours, make sure that you pause the video, make a copy of the vise, and orient it using the transform operations to make sure that it's in the right location. In our case, we're only doing a drilling operation and a small pocket operation that are internal to the outside shape, and I'm not too concerned about hitting any solid geometry. So from this orientation, we want to select 2D drill, and we want to start by selecting our holes. Now, it's important to note the way that the icons change on the screen. If you hover over, in this case, a circle, you'll notice that a few things start to happen. We have the green and red spots that are highlighting based on how long you stay, and we also have the available option to select coordinate points, midpoints, as well as the arc centers. Depending on the geometry you're selecting, this could get a little difficult, so sometimes you might want to use the auto cursor options to help select the center points. I'm going to go ahead and select the center point of each of these holes, and notice that we're sorting them based on the selected order. In our case, we only have 2 holes, so this is not really going to matter, but there are multiple options based on the type of geometry and the amount of holes that you're selecting. Once we've selected our holes, we're going to say OK and move into the toolpath creation dialog. We're going to start with a center drill, and we're going to comment this as spot drill. The stock, we're going to use the stock model as defined in the Setup-2 Fixture stock model. Notice that a dialog pops up telling us that absolute and associative points are not supported when using stock. Well, that's okay. If you decide to make a change, you can always come back and use the stock setup, or you can just turn off use stock altogether. It really depends on the specific operations you're using and whether or not you want some of the intelligent functionality to help calculate the area of certain features and geometry that hasn't been machined yet. We'll go ahead and leave use stock turned off and move on to cut parameters. Since we're doing a spot drill operation, we're going to leave it set to drill counterbore. Under linking parameters, we'll turn on clearance value. In this case, we're going to use a clearance value of 0.25 absolute, a retract value of 0.05 incremental. The top of stock is set to 0, and this is going to be based on our selection of our points. And the depth, we're going to use this calculator icon, and we're going to add a small amount to the depth to help us spot drill. So here we can see some rapid movements, and if we use the backplot option, we can see exactly where the tool is moving to. Now with the backplot option, because we do have tool assemblies, we can show the holder as well to make sure that we don't have any collisions. So if we play through this and we speed it up a little bit, we can see how the spot drill operations are moving. It's a good idea also to note that from this point in time, we can create a stock model after each operation if we want. For example, we can create a stock model. In this case, we'll call this setup-2, fixture-2, and put the number 2 after it because we'll be creating multiples based on our origins. We can use the stock setup, or we can bring it in from the last stock model. Because we're building these operations and we flip the part over, this will account for any operations that have happened on the other side of the part. Our source operations are going to be just the drill counterbore. Now you will notice when we do this that the orientation of our stock model is not correct. In order to fix this in the parameters, we'll have to use the stock plane that was used for the original stock model and not the one that's used for this operation. So in this case, we'll have to go back in and we'll have to grab the fixture from setup2 and say OK and regenerate this operation. You'll notice again that the coordinates are coming in wrong, and in order to fix this, let's go back to the parameters of our first stock model and notice that its stock plane is setup2. So in these parameters, we want to make sure that the stock plane we're using matches the original. And once both of those match and we regenerate it, it'll be in the right location. So you can see in this case, we did a small spot drill operation and it's very minimal. So we're going to go back into the parameters. We're going to go back to linking parameters and we're going to change the depth of this to be 0.08 and regenerate this operation as well as the stock model. This gives us a larger point to help us start drilling these holes. Because we've already selected the locations of both of these holes, we can hold down the right mouse button on operation 4 and drag it down to the insertion point and copy after. We can then go into the parameters. We can change the tool that we're using. In this case, we can pick a drill that has the appropriate size. We're going to call this comment PEC drill. Under cut parameters, we'll change the cycle type to PEC drill. We can modify the PEC drill parameters as needed. And under linking parameters, we want to make sure that we select a depth. And we're going to use the associative option, and we're going to associate it with the bottom of the part. We can also select the depth manually. We can use the calculator to add a specific amount of depth based on the diameter of the tool. Once we say OK, we can regenerate that operation. And notice that we also have a stock model operation here. We're going to modify the parameters of this using the source operation as just operation 6 and regenerate that as well. So you can see now we have a hole drilled all the way through. At this point, let's go ahead and move our insertion point down to the bottom of our toolpath group and save our file so we can move on to the next step.